In this presentation, part of our introduction to Gothic fiction, I'll be talking a bit about what the word Gothic means, where it came from, how it relates to literature, and other places that you might encounter the term. We'll start off with the etymology. Etymology is the study of word origins and how definitions of words evolve or develop over time. The word Gothic comes from the word Goth. Right? The Goths were a Germanic tribe that were instrumental in the downfall of the Roman Empire in the first millennium, and they controlled a huge part of Western Europe in the centuries thereafter. They're one of the many peoples that were referred to by the Romans as barbarians, as in brutish and primitive. While Gothic originally meant relating to the Goths, as in the tribe, this Roman viewpoint influenced the evolution of the definition, and over time it became used to refer to things that were barbaric or uncivilized. In regards to fiction, in the late 1700s, the word Gothic starts to be used to describe characteristics of a popular literary subgenre that developed out of the larger artistic movement known as Romanticism. You'll study more about Romanticism later on in Mr. Fontana's AP class in senior year, but what you need to know is that Romanticism emphasized emotion and individuality and glorified nature and the past. This is largely a reaction to the social and philosophical developments of the Industrial Revolution and the Enlightenment, respectively, which immediately precedes this Romantic period. The Gothic subgenre pursues these ends, though through a much darker and often gruesome route. Beginning on the European continent, most of the famous Gothic works in English are written towards the tail end of its popularity. Some common elements of Gothic literature include isolation or exile, the supernatural, whether that is a being, some sort of supernatural being or monster, or just a phenomenon, something that's unexplainable. Mystery is definitely a big part of it, and decrepitude. Things are always old and falling apart in Gothic novels. The physical collapse of the setting often reflects a moral collapse in one or more of the characters. So here are some famous works of Gothic literature, some you are surely familiar with. So we have Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, right? The Hound of the Baskervilles may seem unfamiliar to you at first, but this novel by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is actually part of the Sherlock Holmes series. So he's called to, there's out on an English country estate, there is a death, a suspicious death, so Sherlock Holmes is called in to investigate. Some believe that it is a giant sort of legendary dog that supposedly roams outside in the moors out there. You have Dracula, your classic vampire novel. It's written actually in the form of letters. We'll be reading a snippet of that at some point during this year. The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde is about a young man who, though he continues to get older and older as time passes, he realizes that he stays young and full of life. However, there is a painting of him that is aging as he should. He realizes that all of the evil that he does becomes tied up with that painting, and it sort of suffers as a result. And then Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? The famous scientist who creates a potion and becomes two beings, one smart and urbane, and the other savage or primitive, right? Like we said, the word Gothic means. You may also come across the word Gothic in relation to architecture, right? This building right here, one of the most famous, probably Gothic structures or Gothic styled structures in the United States, is actually where you will be graduating from in a few years' time. This is St. Patrick's Cathedral in Midtown Manhattan, right? So there are many features that are characteristic of Gothic architecture, and we'll just have a little peek and see if we can identify some here. First of all, you can just see this building, how ornate it is, how intricate those decorations are going across the entire building, right? But beyond that, you have these giant spires, right, that point up, and there's often points at the top of all these structures, and we're going to see another one in just a moment. Right, you have these ribbed structures that are in the windows and the doorways, right, going up and down. Picture like your rib cage, right? You can see barred in on those windows. Here again, we have a pointed structure. This is an arch, right? So when you're going through doorways or window arches, it's pointed at the top instead of having a smooth round. And then probably most famously, right, we have these gargoyles, these statues that are often kind of terrifying, or can be terrifying, that are up on the higher walls outside. Right? But the word Gothic, in recent years, has taken on another meaning, right, as a subculture, or I guess a rock subculture, right? People who are easily spotted in the streets for what they're wearing, right? You can see all black, a lot of times men and women, painted nails, lipstick. You see some Christian imagery here. There's a cross. Sometimes it's, specifically is the opposite. It'll be blasphemous. They'll be wearing an upside down cross, things like that. Right? A lot of leather. And listening to kind of dark rock and roll music. Right? So if you have any questions, I would encourage you to go back through this, go back through any notes that you've taken, and maybe at the bottom write down a few questions that you may have so that you can bring them up with me in class tomorrow or at some point after school, and we'll take it from there. All right?